When I was around 12 years old, I was about to start high school. I didn't want to. So I reckoned I would just run away and never go to school. At about 11 a.m., I left home with a blanket in my bag, some water, and my laptop. I was gone for about 8 hours. About halfway through the day, I was walking along the Hutt River when an old fella on a bike rode up to me. I got scared and thought he was going to kidnap me, but he just stopped and asked if he could introduce himself. I said no, but he continued. He said that he was a man of God and asked me if I believed in God. I didn't want to get murdered, so I said yes. He then told me that he had discovered that he was the herald of Satan. He was chosen to be the Antichrist. He told me to have faith in God and that he knew I would not believe him. He could barely believe it himself, as he was a man of God. He then said that things were going to get really interesting soon. To this day, I fear he's going to be a terrorist or something. Before I go any further with this, I know I've done some pretty stupid things over the years. I never really believed in the paranormal until this incident happened. So when me and my best friend were in high school, I was staying over at her place for the weekend. It was around this time my friend had an art project that was due pretty soon. She didn't have any inspiration to help her create something original. She came up with the idea to do a freaky photo shoot to see if that would help inspire her. Mind you, she's very much into special effects and stuff, especially makeup. So by the time she was finished with my makeup, you could say I looked like a decaying and walking corpse. We decided to take some photos out in her backyard and then go analyze the pictures. After the shoot, she analyzed her pictures and I cleaned myself up. We did another photo shoot. This time she made me look like an elf-like character. That's when I got the idea that maybe we should go to the nearby lake, because there were some awesome places there that would be perfect to shoot. Mind you, it was already 11:30 p.m. at night. So we drove there and we parked in the big empty car park. We just sat there for a few good minutes, talking about how the photo should be taken. That's when I got a chill down my spine, the sensation that we were being watched. That feeling, it's never left. We got out of the car and started taking the photos like we discussed. She had fake, realistic-looking swords and other weapons. We were going to use those as props. The shoot was going along perfectly fine. The place we were at had hiking and biking trails, and it was surrounded by a woodland area, not to mention a lake just off to our left a few good meters away. In the middle of taking some more photos, we heard a sound. It sounded like a strangled and dying animal mixed with a high-pitched human scream. It was too close for comfort. That sound lasted a good solid minute. And then it stopped. Everything got quiet, way too quiet. There was no sound of insects. Nothing. Me and my friend were starting to freak out a little, especially when we heard the sound of sticks on the ground snapping in half to the right of us. We tried not to panic, and we hurried up with the last of the photos. My friend stopped taking pictures. She was just standing and looking past me, terrified. She told me to slowly come over to her, and whatever I do, don't turn around. When she said those words, I instinctively looked behind me. 10 meters or so from me was a long, stocky, but lean black figure that wasn't quite human or animal by the looks of it. I wished I hadn't looked. Whatever the hell that thing was behind me definitely wasn't friendly at all. We knew had we bolted, the thing would have caught us. We just knew. So we calmly, picked up our belongings, and slowly walked back to the car. I don't know how we did it. We got inside of the car and locked the doors. Looked out the windshield. Nothing followed us. Nothing was out there. We quickly hightailed it out of there, and once we were back on the road, I looked in the side mirror and saw the figure standing motionless in the middle of the road watching us leave. Once back at her place, we quickly went inside and locked the doors, shut any open windows, and locked them as well. That night, and into early morning, we could hear scratching and tapping on the windows. I live in East London. 2 weeks ago, I was on a night out in my town. It was a cold Friday night in early May when I began to walk home. By this time, I was heavily drunk and had split off from my friends. They took the Elizabeth line to get home to their university digs in Harrow. I was left all by myself. As I started to walk to the bus stop, which wasn't far from the club, I noticed a tall, skinny man with his head in his hands, sitting on the red plastic bench at the stop. I couldn't see much of his face as it was obscured by his long, dark brown, messy hair. I sat down on the bench furthest away from him. The area was deserted. The guy gave me the creeps. I sat and waited for the bus. I scrolled through TikTok, try not to look at the guy. Suddenly, my focus was interrupted by the sound of sobbing coming from him. His head was still in his hands, and he was sobbing uncontrollably. I glanced at the man several times before deciding to scoot over to him and put my hand on his shoulder. And keep in mind, I was still drunk. He looked up at me, and I gotta admit, I thought he was quite handsome. That was until I was hit by his breath, which was a foul stench, a mixture of cigarettes, vomit, and tooth decay. He had thick, furrowed dark eyebrows, short yet unkempt stubble, and tears rolling down his face. I asked him if he was all right. His facial expression changed, and he let out a loud smoker's cough. Wiping his tears away, he looked at me in the eyes and simply said, "I've hurt a lot of people." At this point, I started to sense the vibe was off, so I asked him what he meant. I felt the alcohol starting to lose its effect on me. He told me plainly, "I've killed someone." My heart sunk to the bottom of my chest. I thought he was joking or lying. He went on to confess to me that he had killed a 17-year-old boy after arranging a gay encounter with him. He told me that he stabbed the boy in the neck with a screwdriver before burning his body in the woods with lighter fluid. I sat there aghast at the sudden confession. I saw the headlights of the night bus approaching in the distance. Without hesitating, I boarded, tapped my oyster, and looked back. The guy on the bench did not follow me. The bus door slammed shut, and I rode the bus. When my bus stopped, I stepped off, looked to my left, only to see a dark figure with long dark hair running towards me down the street. I booked it towards my house, shoved the key into the lock before slamming the door shut and screaming for my mom. That night, I dreamt of the encounter in vivid detail, and the following night, and the night after. As the nights went on, I could see the act of murder in his eyes, as if it was a projection. The dream would pause as he looked up to me, and the pause would be longer each night. The dream stopped around a week after the experience. What unsettled me the most was his voice, robotic and deep, sounding almost distorted as I dreamt of him more and more. My last dream, I was awoken to complete paralysis of my body, and I heard as clear as day from across the room, in a female voice, there wasn't just one victim. Today I made my official police report and was given a reference number. The police told me they would try to identify the man because he was caught on CCTV walking past the club I was at, which, ironically, is opposite the police station.